everyone, and welcome to today's call. My name is Cheryl James. I am an admissions coach here with iPEC Coaching, and with me today is the wonderful Deb Degner. She is one of our very successful grads who is going to share her amazing story with you today and share as many insights as she possibly can squeeze in an hour's time. Just to let you know, we do not have any prepared material. There's no agenda that we're going through. This time is for you. So please feel free to ask questions, and I'm sure Deb will be really happy to share her insights with you. Before we open up the session to questions for Deb, I just wanted to share a little bit of logistical information for you. If you're joining us via the Zoom link, there are two ways for you to ask questions. The first is to type them into the Q&A. And you can also type the questions into the chat box. Either way, we'll be able to see them, and then I can pass those along to Deb. If you're joining us with Facebook Live, hello, out in Facebook land, you can ask your questions in the comment section. And my partner in crime, Suzanne, who's behind the scenes, she'll make sure that she sends me those questions. So again, we can pass those along to Deb and get those answered, okay? And just as a real quick, gentle reminder, we would welcome all your questions that relate to Deb's experience as an iPEC coach, as a graduate, her expertise in the coaching industry. If you have logistical questions about the program, when does the next class start? How much does it cost? What's the format? We're going to share with you ways to get all of those questions answered at the very end. But right now it's all about Deb and having her share her wonderful experience with us. So just to give you a little bit of background on Deb, prior to her successful executive coaching career, she spent more than 20 years in the business as a business leader in the public as well as private sector. And she now has a company called The Leadership Bridge. She works with executives, managers, and also high potential employees to help develop their leadership skills and help them reach their business objectives. And she really likes to use the Energy Leadership Program. She also did something that she just started, which was really fun to hear at group coaching. She's coached 19 different assistant deans at a university. And so she's got some experience in group coaching too that you might want to learn a little bit more about. And most recently, she used her coaching skills to help her navigate a very sudden, life-threatening illness that she experienced when traveling in rural China. So we are delighted to have you, Deb. Hello. You can say hello to everybody.
Thank you very much. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled.
It's our pleasure. And so what we would love to do is have you ask your most pressing questions. Feel free to start typing those questions in the Q&A or in the chat box and on Facebook in the comment sections. And just to get us started before we have any questions coming through, so oftentimes, Deb, people will ask us, how did you get that first coaching client? Would you like to speak to that?
Oh, sure. So I'll tell you about what I thought was my first client, which is kind of a funny story, and then my real first client, because this is, and I'll refer to a lot of things in this session that I really embody and really practice. One is trusting the process. But the first client I thought I had, they emailed me back. I'd been back and forth with the proposal, and I got the words that said, "I'm ready to sign up with you." So I celebrated and bought champagne and went with my family. And it literally took me a year to start with this client. So it became this joke of, is it really my first client? But I guess I'm sharing that story is don't get defeated, because literally a year later, I'm coaching this person and she's a fantastic client. So that's my funny story. My true, when did I pitch and start first client? I started with a company, and the referral came from a person I used to work with. And I'll talk a little bit later on about how I found I was able to get clients. But this was someone who was looking for a coach, and I was hired to come in and coach a couple of their managers that they were wanting to promote. So it was a really great experience. Yeah.
Love that. I love the first story, right? Timing everything, trust the process. It'll all come to you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then getting a corporate client, what a great way to get started. Yes. I know we have a question from Linda that really kind of builds on that says, what actions did you take to get those first clients?
Yeah. So the first one, I'll talk about this particular company that hired me to do two of their managers. I essentially set up the call. And what I really did, a lot of people, when you start your practice, will ask, how can I help you? And what I started telling people is, let me know when you know someone who's looking for a coach. What I found that I wasn't really doing a good job at is pitching why people need a coach. I really wanted to work with people that know they need a coach or know they have someone on their staff that needs a coach. And so what I started to say is when you know someone's looking for a leadership training, send them my way. And so that's exactly what occurred. I sent a note out to about 6 contacts. This particular company was interested in hiring someone. I went and set up a meeting and walked through the kind of work that I had developed, talked a lot about energy leadership, and most importantly, started that whole conversation just listening to what it is that they're looking for. So that first initial meeting, and then I followed up with a proposal, and they said yes.
Wonderful.
And I tried really hard not to let them know that they were my first client, by the way. Behind the scenes, you're going, yay! But inside you're going, I got this.
I love it. That's a great story. And what a great entree in. And I'm sure then referrals come after that and it starts to build. Once you get that first client, that's probably the hardest one, right? It
is. Absolutely it is. And celebrate it when you get it because it's really exciting and you'll get it. It'll be great.
Yes. So one of the questions we have from a gal named Linda is that, I've heard the coaching industry is getting really saturated. What's your experience with that as somebody that's successful now?
Oh, I think there's always room for the best. So I really wouldn't get caught up in that. I would say be very authentic and think about the kind of clients that you could be most helpful with. So I think, and actually to me, I think the competition is exciting. And I think it's fantastic that more people are really starting to understand the value of coaching, the value of coaching. So to me, that's incentive to how do I stay the best? How do I use the Ipec materials, which I think is state of the art, to really land the right clients that I can help the most.
Yeah, I love that you said there's always room for the best, because that's true. There are a lot of people that hang their shingles out, right? That have no formal training. That doesn't mean it's good coaching. Just means they're a coach, right? So there's always room.
Well, and when I picked Ipec as the coaching program, Cheryl, I was really focused on a program that would help me figure out how to start my business, which I thought was fantastic. And then B, a rigorous program, which I will tell you, it can be rigorous. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours, and it way exceeds, I think, the ICF requirements. But I wanted that. I wanted to be the best of the best. And so picking the right program is also key to that, I believe.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. We have somebody else, Betsy's asking, how many companies do you think are really looking for outside coaching in the business world since you're an executive coach?
Oh, you know what? I think it's growing. I just talked to a company yesterday that has literally, I think, and it's a company of several thousand, and it already has 15 to 20 coaches that they've hired externally. So I think it really is growing. I think it's a great industry to enter into now. I certainly don't have that number for how many companies, but I think over the last 5 to 6 years, it really has grown tremendously. I know those statistics are out there, and each year I think that's growing more and more.
Wonderful. One of the things that you mentioned is when you're working in these corporations, you really do believe in the power of energy leadership. And we've got a question coming in saying, what do you think is the most powerful thing about energy leadership and its impact?
Oh, I really think it's building the self-awareness for people. We all really look at the world, generally speaking, as what things happen to us. And we spend little time thinking, what is it I'm doing to create things to happen, to create my world? And so energy leadership really allows you to step outside of your world and observe things, observe your behaviors, and understand how that's impacting others in a positive or a negative way, and how you want to shift that to really be, at your peak performance. So I think it's incredibly relevant for business leaders and for anyone, quite frankly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's great. Julia just asked, do you believe you can be effective in the coaching industry without a credential from like an iPEC or another top school?
I think it really depends on the kinds of clients that you're looking for. I know that when I go to corporate clients, they are interested generally in my certification and what that means. A lot of times they're interested. With all my corporate clients, I use an assessment, which there is an energy leadership assessment that IPEC provides that I found a very effective tool. So I would say corporate clients are generally interested in that certification. Maybe for life coaching or health coaching, I'm not familiar with those industries. It may not be as relevant. I would just ask yourself, how do you set yourself up to be most successful so that you can serve your clients the best? And I always felt like before I started the IPEC program, I was going to be a good coach because I gave good advice. And man, going through the programs flipped that completely, because I thought, who am I to think that I can fix people's problems? So there's just so much about a real certification that really helps you to understand how to help people the most.
Absolutely. You're so right. Because so many people will contact us on a day-to-day basis and say, I'm the person they come to for advice and I'll be a great coach. And those are generally people that are drawn to this industry. But we learn very quickly that the methodology is not about giving advice at all.
That's right.
But you have to be a great listener and be able to facilitate the process. So that's wonderful.
Yes, I agree.
Somebody was just talking about kind of the marketing side of things here. Amy is asking us if you feel like publishing articles or being visible on Facebook is important. What is your experience with that, Deb?
I'm only laughing because my web designers, who I consider my partners, are always asking me. And so you're going to go to my website and you're going to see a really old blog list. I think it's incredibly important. I'm not the person that's great at it. I find most of my energy comes from being one-on-one with people and one-on-one with my clients. But I think writing articles, Facebook, or all of that, if that's your strength and something that you like to do, you're going to be great at it. And I think in this day and age, it's incredibly important. I'm just not a great role model for that. I'm working on it. I'm staying committed, but I'm just not quite there. But lots of people do that. And I think it can be a very effective marketing tool. I will tell you, Cheryl, getting a good website, particularly in corporate America, I always felt like, a lot of the clients I work with may or may not care if I have a great website, but I know that in a corporate setting, going to their boss to ask for approval and funding, they're going to want to see that I'm legitimate and that I have a good, legitimate executive presence on my website. So I found investing in a website for me and for the clients I was going after was really important.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because oftentimes people get nervous about, should I do a website right away? Should I not do a website right away? But it does legitimize you, right? That you really are for real and you really do have experience.
Well, and I'll tell you this, one thing I would tell people is don't let anything get in your way. I would say really stay present and really figure out what you can do today. I think clients can understand that you're getting started while you're building your website. I was fortunate in that I was able to not work while I was going through iPEC, spend those 7 months building my website, building my brand, finding out all of that stuff. So if you have that, that ability, great. But if you don't, people understand. But I do think if you're going after corporate clients, executive clients, then I think a website would be important. But don't let it keep you from starting. There's all these excuses to keep you from starting, and just ask yourself, what can I do today to move forward with a business?
I love that because we're really good at coming up with excuses that, tomorrow.
That's right.
Maybe someday, right? And
exactly
we get derailed.
Yeah. Me, this is my brand new office. I just moved across the United States. And you see, I could have not done the call because my office looks very plain, but who cares? I don't care what my office looks like.
Exactly. I was just going to comment. I love your decorating. It's awesome.
It's beautiful. That's the echo in the room, right?
But you're right. There are lots of reasons to not get started and not move forward. And we have to be really self-aware of those. Absolutely. And I love your advice not to let that stop you. Don't let that trip you up.
Right.
Somebody is asking, Linda is asking, what aspects of the iPEC program made the greatest difference for you?
Oh, that's great. So the energy leadership altogether, I think, was so impactful, just understanding that and helping people build that self-awareness. But I'll tell you, Cheryl, and I can't remember because it's changed since I went through the program. Core Dynamics, is it offered along with the general?
It is.
So I will tell you that the Core Dynamics program took my business to the next level. And I think the reason it was really the energy leadership concepts were so great, but understanding and explaining, and I realize the folks on the call have not been through this, but there are a couple of levels of energy that are a little challenging to explain, or at least it was for me. But the Core Dynamics program really took energy leadership and allowed me to apply it to leadership performance. And so it took all the information and took it to the next level where the materials were fantastic. So I felt like that gave me even more tools to be successful with my clients. And that's what I really did use with my group coaching experience with the assistant deans and found it very effective.
I love that. And it's wonderful that you took advantage of Core Dynamics. Now that is part of the standard program. So people get that but it's nice to know that that was a helpful resource for you to kind of catapult your business to the next level. That's awesome.
Well, and I use it all the time, the 10 disciplines on how to become a more effective coach and be more effective in my business. It's something I refer to all the time.
Good. That's wonderful. Somebody is asking, can you walk us through a typical coaching experience in a corporation?
Oh, okay, sure. So, and people do it very differently. In fact, one of my dear friends is the person who introduced me to Ipek, and she does her onboarding a little bit different. But generally what I do is I meet with the managers to understand their needs once they've agreed to hire me, understand what they're looking for, remembering that the client is the person that I'm coaching. So I call them sponsors of the client, but the client is really the person I'm setting goals with. But it's good for me to understand the expectations that they're looking for. And then I meet with the client. And with the client, I do the assessment, the energy leadership assessment. And then we walk through and set up goals. I then check in with the managers and say, here are the goals we're setting. Does this sound effective for what you're hoping to accomplish with this employee? They say yes. And then we get rolling. And then each time we do the 1 hour coaching session. And then I midway through follow up with the managers to see kind of how we're doing on progress. And then also at the end of the coaching process, I sit with the client and the managers to do a wrap-up session on how do things go and what can we do to help you and support you going forward after the coaching experience ends.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Linda is asking us, did you wait until you finished the iPEC training to start your business?
I did, but that's really, I wouldn't say let that hold you back either, Linda, because a lot of people are successful in starting. I hear a lot of people talk about not charging a full fee. And if that's where you feel comfortable, that's great. I see other people who charge exactly what they want to charge midway through the program. So I would say trust your gut and your intuition on when you're ready to start. For me, I felt like I wanted to get through those 3 modules to have all of the tools available. But again, for those that maybe you've been coaching all along and you feel ready, already, I would say don't let that slow you down. But I did wait.
I love that. You're so right. It really is a personal decision,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yes.
some people are more comfortable than others. We have an admissions coach here at iPEC that got her first client on her way home from Mod 1. And I'm always like,
awesome.
That is so fearless. I was not that way either, but bless her heart, so it's very individual.
Well, and I'll tell you, the more you start coaching, the better you're going to get. I even did something where I sent out a blast email. I bought all of these assessments because I really wanted to become an expert in doing a debrief. And so I bought them and sold them just at cost to my friends just to get the practice going for the assessment debrief process. So the more you can practice coaching, practice debriefs, the better you're going to be and the better you're going to be able to serve the clients along the way. So practice, practice, practice. If that means starting early, great. Do it.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
We have a question from Oscar. He said, once graduated as a professional coach, do you also look for coaching for you or have support within the iPEC community? I think that's a great question.
Yes. I have actually a coach that I think is amazing. I met her in Mod 2 and she had been a counselor for years and years. And I just immediately was drawn to her energy and her amazing listening skills. And so she is my coach and she makes me better all the time, whether it's business or personal or the things that I'm working through. You really have to walk the talk in my mind. And so I love sharing with clients the difference my coach makes in my life. So I believe in that completely.
I agree with you. We always say, right, most coaches have coaches because we believe in the process and we know how effective it is. So I love that you're an example of that. And you actually are connected with somebody you went through the training with, which is even more beautiful. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Eileen is asking, how many clients do you typically have at any one given time?
So Eileen, I have not ratcheted up fully. I've got 10 executive clients now. And for what I'm doing with the group work and then some of the other groups that I'm starting to build on also, I've really wanted to keep it at 10. And that's a great question because I remember going through the program and having this idea of 20, 30, 40 clients. And I think some people, go-getters, can absolutely do that and do that well. But the way I've grown my business has really suited me well in serving these clients the best. So I've got 10. I only started my business a year ago. So for me, that's been a good pace in the middle of this move and a couple of other transitions I've been going through.
And two, I know you do corporate work, right? So it's not necessarily quantity, it's quality. Yes. You get more than one person in these different engagements, I'm sure, as well, right? So
that's a good point. And one client leads to another. For that first client, I was telling you that they hired me for 2 managers. I'm on the 3rd manager and about to start with a local manager here as well. So you're right. Those do grow. And that's really, And I, if people have questions about getting clients and some things that I've done, I'm happy to share that as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We have Linda asking, is it important to get the ICF certification? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think the answer is yes. I think anytime, particularly in a corporate environment, right? The more you can point to your credentials, I think it does matter. You would be amazed if you are able to build clients quickly, how quickly those hours will add up to be able to get certified. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dominique is asking us, did you look at other coaching programs before signing up with Ipek? And if so, why did you choose Ipek?
Ooh, great question, Dominique. Yes, I did. I believe in a competitive process. I looked to coaches that I know and asked them their recommendations, and I looked at 3 other programs. So what ended up landing me with Ipek, I had a referral from a person that my college roommate, has been an executive coach successfully for the past 10 years. She was an Ipaq graduate, so I had that endorsement. But I was really impressed with the resources they provided to help start my business. That was very impactful for me. So that was something to me that stood ahead with Ipaq program. I also felt like, again, the hours, I can't remember, Cheryl, is it 320 hours? Is that right?
Plus now with core dynamics, but right, you're right in there.
And it's well above. And what's the ICF credentialing?
Oh, the ICF for that lowest designation, it's 100 hours.
Yeah. So, I mean, look at the difference at IPEC. So I was really looking again for a rigorous program that was going to set me up to be successful the most. And I found IPEC. Plus, I really just, in reading about the energy leadership concepts on the website, I was impressed with that. Great.
Excellent. Somebody's asking, what's the breakdown in your individual coaching versus group coaching?
As far as percentage wise?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say the thing about group coaching, and so for this particular program, we started, it's 19 assistant deans, but I also do group work, and then I do individual coaching, also one-on-one coaching with each of them. So that takes a lot of my time. So I would say time-wise, I'm probably 65% on group. And again, that relationship is growing as we speak, more programs in the fall. So once you get started with your one-on-one exec clients, I think they roll pretty naturally. I will tell you this, I spend quite a bit of time in between coaching sessions, prepping and following up with them. I think that's really important to their success. I send out follow-up notes. So I guess I'm telling you that because you think of it as 1 hour every week, 2 weeks, whatever you set up with your clients. But there is in between time that you need to prepare for, I think, to be successful. So, but I would say 65% group for me right now.
Perfect. And I think speaking to that, I think that that's a really good point, especially in corporate. There's probably an expectation that there's some follow-up versus if you're working with somebody maybe in the health and wellness space and you're coaching somebody on diet or nutrition, maybe there wouldn't be as many follow-up notes type of things. So depending, again, probably who your client is. Would you agree?
Well, yes. And I think too, I mean, one of the reasons people hire coaches is to help them with goal setting and being accountable, right? So in order to be accountable, I think reminding them of what they want to set to do, reminding them of these are your goals and this is what we discussed and you want to do next. So I think it's very effective tool for this is what you're focused on, right? It's sort of that kind of gentle nudge, but making sure that they're accountable, but being that partner with them is really important.
I love that. It's such a great technique, like you said, to just kind of remind, this is what we agreed on. This is kind of what the next steps are so that everybody's on the same page. So you're being very mindful of their time and they're putting in the work to get the most out of the sessions as well.
Yeah. And I do something too. A lot of coaches do. I call it pre-discovery, but I send out a form in advance of my relationship, my coaching with them, just asking them, how best can I hold you accountable? Because almost with every client, there's a time when they're not either doing the work in between or they're not following up. And you want to understand how to be most effective in communicating with them about that and asking the questions that are going to help them the most. So understanding what works for them is a really effective way to start your relationship.
Great idea, Deb. Now you've got it like in your hip pocket before you even start. And if you need to pull it out, you can. And you know that's going to be the most effective way to hold them accountable. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So we're also getting a question. Can you talk about the assessment tools you use and are they available through Ipaq?
Yes. So I use with every client the Energy Leadership Index assessment. And that is something that will be introduced to Ipaq, what do you call them, enrollees, whatever, people going through the program in the third module. And you will be so excited to get that tool. And it is very, very effective. So I use that with every client. There is a 360 version, which I've used several times with corporate clients. And that's, if you're not familiar with 360, that's where you can get other feedback from others on your leadership presence. So I've used that. I also have used the emotional intelligence EQI with some clients. I'm about to get certified in that. But one of the things, one of the questions that Suzanne and I were visiting on is, what are the challenges of being a coach? And I'll tell you, for me, I'm incredibly collaborative, and it can be a little bit lonely, and you can work a little bit in solitude. And so one of the things I do is I connect with other coaches, and highly recommend this, who have different certifications. So I have a friend here in Fort Worth that's certified in EQI. And so I will hire her for a client, and we'll do the debrief together. And so where you can collaborate with others, for me, I always felt like I needed to go out and get certified in every assessment, which find the ones you want to do that with and build that over time. But in the interim, figure out what assessments are going to serve your clients the best, and then try to connect with someone who is certified until you can get certified. That's what I have done and found that very effective.
What a great idea, because now you have more tools that you can offer, but you don't necessarily have to be, certified in them, and you can partner. And then I'm sure the same thing, that same friend will probably ask for an ELI assessment, and that way you can do that with her as well. So that's wonderful. Great idea.
And it keeps you connected with people too, which I think is a big part of being an effective coach, is comparing notes and sharing with each other and collaborating. I have coaches that I talk to all the time. When I put together my group coaching experience, we collaborated on the agenda. So the more you can do that with others, I think the better your materials are going to be, quite frankly.
I love that Dominique is kind of shifting gears a little bit more to the personal side of things. And she's asking, can you please share how maybe you coached yourself after that situation you went through in China? Like, how did coaching help you?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Dominique, for the question. So long story short, last summer, my husband and I were planning the trip of a lifetime in China, and I became very ill. And one of the beautiful things about coaching is whatever you're learning, as you'll find, for your clients, you learn it for yourself. And so you have this amazing opportunity to be your best self with everything that you're learning. And when I became very ill, we were in a very rural hospital. I had to have emergency colon surgery. It was incredibly scary. No one spoke English except our tour guide. And we had to make some really fast decisions very quickly. I was getting very ill. And so going through the surgery, the 6-hour surgery, I speak about this, by the way, and it's been really great to share this story. But in waking up in the hospital bed, what I realized was, in order to get out of the hospital and to move my recovery forward, get home to my daughter and to my family, I needed to do 3 things. I focused on practicing gratitude. Every morning I woke up at 4 a.m. when that first nurse came in, and I rattled off all the things I was grateful for: being alive, my daughter, my husband, all the wonderful things that I have blessings for, the wonderful nurses who were there. The second was energy leadership. I really realized I was quite angry, as you can imagine, for being in this situation where I was so ill and things got so close. But I realized that level of energy wasn't going to serve me well to get better. I had to walk the halls, I had to exercise. And so being very aware of my energetic presence became a tool that I could say, I can be angry, but that's not going to serve me well. So how do I shift that energy to serve me the best? So that was the second tool. And the third tool I used was being present, using mindfulness. I realized that I needed my energy to be right there in that hospital room that day. If I thought about how I got here, it really defeated me and brought my energy level down. If I thought about my future and seeing my daughter and all of those things, as much as that sounds like something that would be exciting, I realized that de-energized me because I got sad. And so I stayed incredibly present. And so now I'm able to share those 3 things with clients and others that I speak to, because I feel like that allowed me to I got out of the hospital in 8 days. They said I would be there at least 2 weeks. So I felt like, it was a very quick recovery for the kind of surgery that I had. So thanks for letting me share that.
I love that. And you know what? I think it speaks to how this training can not only impact you from a professional standpoint, but also on that personal side, and what a horrible circumstance to go through, but how wonderful that some of this training was able to help you get through a very, very difficult time.
It was, Cheryl. And for anyone that's interested, I want to share that story and give that back to others. So if they'll get my email at the end of this, if you're interested in sharing that with others, I wrote the story. It was in my mind because I just couldn't get it out and I needed to wait until I was healed. But it was, I've got it written, would love to share it with anyone. But thank you. And yes, I felt like it was just a gift to have those tools available to me. And it helped, I think, save my life and help me get refocused and certainly recover.
Beautiful. So we have a question from Amy.
Yes.
Did you know what kind of training you wanted to, it says go into what kind of coach you wanted to be, life, corporate. Did you know that going into the training is what she says?
I think I did, Amy. I felt like I had done a lot through the public relations background that I have. I did a lot of consulting with executives on helping them understand how to be better communicators. And so I was very comfortable in that space. So I all along felt like executive coaching would be the way I would want to go. But I will tell you, I think it becomes a part of the program that people get really anxious about when you have to choose what you call your P-SIG and Mod 2. Don't get too caught up in that, because what you choose, your clients are going to find you. And the tools that you're going to learn through iPEC or whatever training you decide are going to help you be successful. But it was very natural for me to go that route with my corporate background.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Betsy's asking, would you recommend someone that's interested in coaching to shadow a coach, somebody that's maybe gone through the iPEC training before they start getting their own clients?
Oh, sure. That's a great idea. If that's available to you and it's someone that you connect well with, that you figure, you can learn from, I think that would be an awesome opportunity. And I'm sure the coach would love doing that. I will tell you, so many people have shared so much information with me, along the way, and helped me. And I feel very committed to giving back that, because it has been such a great partnership. So I think that mentoring relationship would be very effective if that's something you can do. You bet.
I love that you said that, Deb. I think that's so true. When you join this program, you really become part of a community, don't you? Don't you feel like people are very connected and very generous with their time, with their resources, sharing insights, just like you're doing with us today? I just feel like it's very much a community feel. Do you agree?
Oh my goodness, yes. The iPEC community page is so effective. And I feel like so many people share the information, and remembering to do that with others is so important. Giving back, it just opens up the whole world. So yes, it's incredibly collaborative. And it's just a beautiful group of people I learn from all the time.
That's great.
Yeah.
We are getting a question from Julia asking, what qualities do you look for in a prospective client?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that, because so qualities do I look for? And a lot of times, remember, corporations hire me. So I may or may not be choosing the client that they're assigning me. But I'll tell you this, staying really committed and true to their needs is really important. So it's easy to get caught up in the expectations of the manager, but really understanding that you're there to help that particular client is important. And I've been able to connect in different ways with all of my clients, because there's a need there. They may or may not know it in the beginning, but listening to them, being there for them, helping them understand and set goals and be accountable, it's just an easy process. But I will tell you too, sometimes when an individual hires me, I've got an individual business owner that I'm working with. And I'll tell you, I am the most effective coach when I have people who are already successful and looking to perfect their game. So what I'm not best at is helping people who are at the kind of the, I don't know how to say this and not be impolite, but I'm really good with helping people get to that next level. So I'm really good with people who are very motivated, but maybe missing this particular thing. Where I'm not as good as if people have a big old open field of I have no idea what I want. I don't find that I'm as effective with them for whatever reason. So I don't serve them the best. So it's really about aligning with the people that I can help them move their needle the best. It's not so much that I don't want to work with them. It's just that they're going to have someone else that's more effective with them.
I love that, because not everybody's going to have the same gifts. Right. And you're going to attract probably clients that are more like you. Yes. And that'll be a really good match. Somebody just asked, this is kind of a nice follow-on question. What are the most difficult clients you've ever had experienced? If you want to share something that's fun on the difficult side.
Oh, sure. So having a client that really believes that they're very self-aware, but it's not something that you're observing. So, and here's the thing, guys. So when you become a coach, remaining curious is so important, not getting caught up. It's very easy as an achiever, and I've considered myself an overachiever in the business world my entire career. And what iPEC has taught me is really understanding and stepping out of that role and being curious about trusting the process. So understanding that just because this person may not be where they need to be or where you thought they'd be, it's their journey, and really learning to hold their expectations and let them, this be their agenda is really important. I can't even remember the question you asked me, but it's something I did want to share because it's something that I've even found myself asking myself the questions of, okay, whose goals are these? Are these the goals for me to feel better about moving the needle for them? Or am I really focused on what their needs are? And remaining really focused on that is, I think, important key. Did I totally miss the question?
No, that was really helpful. Not at all. That was really helpful. And, making sure you're sticking to their agenda, right?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't become about us as the coach, right?
Yeah.
Even if we want to,
you're going to have some clients that just take this information, they just zoom through it and they love it. And you do the assessment again and they're off the charts. And you're going to have other clients that are just on a different journey, and being patient and understanding that this is their journey and not a journey where we find success for us, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. The more you focus on their agenda, the more successful you're going to be.
I love that. And, I'm sure each client it's organic, right? Each client is different. So they're not all going to be those ones that are going to take it and run. There's going to be.
And judgment. I mean, you learn so much in energy leadership about the impact of judgment, and really making sure that you're checking yourself on judgment is really important as well.
I love that. Somebody is asking, do you have any suggestions on how to find a quality web designer? And how much time did you devote to developing your website?
None, because that is not where my energy is. That kind of stuff makes me crazy. So I found a group, 232 Creative in Pittsburgh, that I loved. And I needed someone that was niche and small and easy to work with. I wanted someone who had high energy. They were very creative. They did logo work for me. Once you get on the iPEC community, there's going to be all sorts of endorsements for different web designers. But I was willing to invest because I really felt like a good website presence was important for my clients, my potential clients. And so I invested in this particular website. But they've done video work for me in the beginning. So 232 Creative is who I worked with. But all kinds of information you can get from other coaches on who they've used. Different budgets are available. And how important is that for your particular coaching practice would be the next question too.
Love that. And, nice to give a shout out to 232. That's wonderful. And like you said, there are so many coaches in this community. You go on the Facebook page, on the Blackboard page and say, hey, does anybody have a great web designer? And within 20 minutes, you're going to have 100 responses, right? So that's the nice thing about the community.
Yeah, I agree.
2 questions coming in the same from 2 different people about how much do you know how to charge your clients? How do you set your fee?
That is the $1 million question. And not one coach will answer that for you. Ha ha. No, you know what? I think you just have to. For me, I was really caught, and my gremlin, you'll learn about gremlins through the program, but I don't have enough experience as a coach. And what I really started to focus on was that I have 20 to 25 years worth of experience in corporate America. So when you really can price yourself according to your expertise, my expertise necessarily wasn't coaching, but it was in the leadership programs that I'd gone through in corporate America. And it was through all the different work I'd done as a leader in corporate America. So I just set my prices. And once you get into your P6, people will start to talk about ranges. Executive coaches are generally these ranges. Life coaches are generally these ranges. But I would say, remember, don't be afraid to charge what you think it's worth. People can always tell you no, and it's always can be a negotiation. So, don't be afraid to. One of the things that I've done, and I think it's been effective, is I generally send my contracts out for my proposals for a lot longer than a lot of people. And you'd be amazed if people just say, yes, I'll sign on for a year. I never send a proposal for 3 months. Now, a lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I send very long contracts. Some people will come back and say 6 months, and so they might even say 4 months, but generally speaking, a lot of people try it. Try a price, try a contract, and just throw it out there. Again, be curious about this and learn along the way. And then, I started to see of the X amount of proposals I was sending out, I was getting a take rate of this, and I was getting a higher take rate in corporate than I was individuals if they were paying for it. So you kind of start to analyze what you're sending out there, and you can start to find your range that works for your clients.
Beautiful. What about, Linda's asking, what kind of professional organizations do you find helpful?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm on, in my prior life, I was on some state chamber boards, which I've maintained that. Think that's very effective. Local chambers of commerce can be effective. I do get involved with the local ICF chapters, again, just to build that collaboration and to continue education as a coach. I think that's effective too. But depending on when you live, there's a lot of great business. Again, if you're corporate or executive, I think a lot of business associations have great networking opportunities. Since I just moved, I moved from Pittsburgh back to Fort Worth, Texas, home, which is great. I really haven't done any networking yet, but I will definitely get involved with the local chambers and the business groups here.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. And everybody has their own way of doing it. Those are some great places to start, though. I love that.
Yes.
Dominique is asking us, and I love this question, Deb. I am anxious to hear what you have to say because I get this question a lot as well. When you're working in corporate, do you find people get kind of put off by the talk of energy? Do they think it's too woo-woo or age-ish? I'm just reading the question.
Sure.
For example, can people of faith feel comfortable with this type of coaching? These are great questions, so I'd love to hear how you answer them.
It's a great question, and it's talked about quite a bit, particularly in the corporate America, if you will. How do you talk about energy? And I would say you'd be amazed. Again, be curious and trust your intuition. If you have a client, and a lot of my clients are engineers. I serve a lot of clients in the oil and gas industry, which is where I came from. And so I have some pretty conservative clients. And I have to tell you, they've all been pretty darn open to the energy leadership concepts. But I talk about it with them as related to performance. I talk about it as related to leadership presence, as related to management skills, and as related to communicating with others. And so as long as you can relate what energy leadership means, I think it can be confusing. People don't understand it. And so really thinking about what are going to be the words that resonate with this particular person. Sometimes going into a meeting first off, it's difficult to relate. But I would say have some words related to performance, leadership, those kinds of things, if that feels comfortable. As you get more comfortable with the energy leadership concepts, I can almost tell you it won't be an issue. Luke Iorio has told me that religiously. My first step out of the box, I remember saying, how do you talk about that with clients? And he just said, just trust the process. And I've gotten much better at it, but just think about the words that are going to resonate with them the most.
I love that you put it in the context, though, of the words that mean the most to them. So it might be in the leadership context. You put a little context around it. So I think that helps them understand it in kind of in their terms. I love that.
Think about sales. If you're coaching people in sales, what are the words that are going to resonate with sales? It's going to be, how do you get people increased in sales? What are the words that are going to motivate them? And for me, it's performance. And I'm working with a lot of people that are looking for their promotion. So I always talk about, getting their leadership skills to a certain level is going to be important for that promotion.
Love that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So somebody is asking, Linda is asking, what percentage of your coaching sessions are over the phone versus in person?
Ooh, that's a great question. And so I had a little bit of a bias before I started with Ipek on this phone coaching, but I will tell you, and again, remember, I've just moved and I was able to retain all of my executive clients. What I do now is I do video or phone, and then I travel up about once a month to meet with them, which may or may not be necessary. Right now, I would tell you all but one of my clients is going to be via phone, and it works. Now, other people will tell you it doesn't. So I do all of my group work, obviously, individually with the group, but I do a lot over the phone and over video, and I find it to be effective. A lot of times, I just tell people, again, you got to meet the client needs. And so what I'll say is, let's try it, and you tell me how it works. And I will tell them why it works for me. It works for me because sometimes I have the strangest look on my face when I'm concentrating. And so for me to really get into what they're saying and really listen, I'm able to contort my face and move my head and do all these things that I probably wouldn't do in person. So I find myself concentrating even harder and listening even better sometimes when it's over the phone. So I explain that to them, not to sell it to them, because they've got to be comfortable with the format, right? And so what I've done now is I've brought on new clients. As I was moving from Pittsburgh, I've just said, it's going to be over the phone. And so you need to make sure you're comfortable with that. The other thing you can do if you want to add more clients, and I think Luke told me he does all of his executive clients over the phone. If you want to do that and build more clients, it's a lot more timely. As you can imagine, you're not driving, and I live in DFW area. You can imagine how much time I could spend on the road if I did all my clients one-on-one. But you can give them an incentive, 10% discount if you do phone coaching, and just, again, have them try it on for size and see if it works.
Love the try it and see approach, because like you said, I bet there were many clients that might have been a little bit hesitant and they tried it and they loved it. So,
But you have I initially thought I would sell this, and you know what? It's all about the client, and I don't sell it at all. I just say, try it. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, let's figure out another way to make this work.
I love your approach though, Deb. It's meeting them where they're at, right?
Absolutely.
So we're trying to push one vehicle versus another. If they're comfortable with it, great. If not, that's okay too.
That's right.
So I have a question here from Irene saying, do you maintain a separate set of notes or a notebook for each client? And do you bring that with you to the coaching sessions?
I do. And so I follow up after each session too with an email. And so I read that before I coach them again. But I have a folder for each client. It has their assessment in it and whatever other things we've gone over. And it allows me to reflect on everything we've covered so far and even ask specific questions, because as you're coaching them in the moment, there may be something that they mention that intuitively is important, even from a couple of sessions ago. And I like to be able to follow up and say, tell me what happened with this particular engagement, because I know that was on your mind. Anything there that we need to talk about. So, and I also use a lot of the energy leadership materials, the ELDS system, which will be introduced in Mod 3, and the core dynamics materials too. And so a lot of times we're following up on those different materials they're looking at.
Perfect. That makes sense. A folder for each client.
That's right.
And you've got your notes that you can refer to, which I'm sure they appreciate, because now you sound like you've just not skipped a beat, right? You're very well versed referring to those notes before you start that next session, and they know that you're very present and ready to roll.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Excellent. Back to the actual training, Julie is asking, what did you find most energizing about each of the modules? Mm-hmm. And what did you find energizing the time in between the modules?
Great question. So most energizing was definitely the connections and the people. I really enjoyed getting to know, one of my core values is connection. And so getting to know those people, and I keep up with several of them through all the different mods, because different people came to different mods. But I would say that was the most energetic piece, was really opening myself. And I'll tell you, there's going to be all different kind of people in your modules. And I just told a friend of mine who went to his first iPEC training, pay attention to the person you think you connect with the least, because you will likely learn something from that person. And so really starting to open your mind to other types of people and other types of coaches, you will learn from all different kinds. So that was definitely the most energizing. And in between sessions, the peer coaching that takes place can be very energizing, because you start to get some wind in your sails when you start to get the concepts. I remember being very overwhelmed starting to coach and really practicing these tools they were teaching me. But as you practice more and more, you get your confidence going. And I remember getting some wind and excitement midway through the program as I got more comfortable with the coaching concepts. Excellent.
So Linda, as a follow-up question, is asking, which of the energy leadership concepts do you use the most?
So I would say core dynamics, what I use the most is disciplines. So not to tell you too much, but it's essentially how to understand if you were to be 100% energetically at your best, performing at your peak, what would those 10 things that you need to focus and practice on be? And I use those religiously all the time. I use them in China. I use them now with clients and building my business. I use them with my family. So absolutely practicing the disciplines on how to be most energetically present is what I use constantly.
Wonderful. Irene is asking, do you actually take notes during your sessions?
Oh, yes. But you know what? That's a great question, Irene, because I am a copious note taker. And sometimes one-on-one, I think that could be distracting. And it also can, in my past, I think it can keep me focused on what I'm writing and keep me from listening. So I would just caution you to be careful that you're really staying present and listening, and that your note taking isn't detracting from that. So I've learned a little bit, and it's a work in progress, on how to jot things down, because again, I want to follow up with them on what we talked about, what their goals are, what they want to be working on, but not to the point of jotting down every little word. I can be very prescriptive that way. And I found that I would miss the conversation or pieces of it. And this is just practice, right? So I would say just be aware of whatever it's taking to be most present and be the best listener with the client. And if that means notes, great. If it means no notes, that's okay too.
I love that, because you're right. You can kind of get in that loop of, I'm trying to take everything down that I'm almost missing the moment. right?
I can't spell that word. How do you spell copious?
One moment while I check my thesaurus, and I'll be right back with you.
Yeah, not exactly being present when you're doing that, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Andrea's asking, did you begin your coaching at night when you were still working a day job before you fully grew your practice?
I did not, Andrea. I was lucky that I planned and was able to take the 7 months during the training off. A lot of people do. And a lot of my peer coaches and my friends that were going through iPEC did that. And so you'll see the other thing someone was asking about what I found most energetic, those teleclasses on Tuesday nights, whatever those are, I found those to be so awesome. An hour and a half each week. And the content they're teaching you and these amazing coaches that have these amazing businesses, that was fantastic information. Those are all in the evening. So I was able to work during the day, but also in the evenings. And most of my peer coaching were in the evenings because most of my colleagues were working. So you can do it. It's a time commitment though, a worthwhile one, but it is.
Classy is asking, what advice do you have for younger coaches? She said, I'm somebody in my mid-20s and I wonder if my age will hinder me from getting clients.
Oh, only if you allow it, only if you focus on that. So I would say, flipping that, and you'll learn about anabolic energy. So anabolically, what's the thing about your age that's going to help you be the most successful? I mean, I would love to have had these tools available to me when I was 25. So I'm a little envious that you're even considering learning this now, because you will have the world at your fingertips if you can learn this at that age. I learned it in mid-40s, and it's changed who I am. It's changed who I am as a mother, as a wife, certainly as a coach. But I think there's a strong advantage to starting this younger and being able to share that information with others. I think about your ideal client and how you can reach them. And maybe that's someone in your age group, because these should be, concepts that can really change them early on as they're starting their careers. So I think that's going to be your wicked best tool. So good luck with that. That's exciting.
I love that you're challenging her to flip it. That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Because
it's all on how you look at it.
What she's feeling is a negative.
Yes.
Actually serve her and be an advantage. So see, you can tell you're a coach, Deb. That's wonderful.
Got to build up that anabolic energy, don't we, Cheryl?
That's right. That's right. Mary's asking, how did you overcome your fears of starting a coaching business?
Oh, great question. Gosh, I don't know that I ever have, right? I mean, I just moved halfway across the country, and I'm starting over in a sense. I'm keeping some clients, but that was a fearful moment. I think it's just being very present, Mary. And I think dealing with the fear each moment at a time and really figuring out if I'm present and I'm dealing with this particular thing, like I have 3 proposals, I've got to get out the door by Friday and it's completely weighing on me. But rather than think about that in the biggest sense, I really have to decide, what can I do today to help move the ball forward? So staying very, very present is how I've been able to work through fears. But fears are always going to crop up. Just really, and again, back to the disciplines, really staying present and understanding that fear only exists in the past and in the future. If you stay really present, there's really nothing in the current situation that you can't deal with. So staying that focus has been very effective for me.
That's great. That's great. Somebody's asking, how do you go about starting a private practice?
Ooh, great question. So I was going to share with you, and this is a funny story. So people look at me and they energetically think that I'm this huge extrovert, and I can be. But I also can be incredibly introverted. I love my quiet time. I am what they call, I think, an introverted extrovert or something like that. So I'm not a great networker. To send me, and as a lobbyist, this was a hilarious thing, to send me into a room full of strangers terrifies me. I'm the person in the corner with her, glass of wine, not talking to anyone, because I don't like that part. I'm much better one-on-one or with people that I already know. And so where people will say networking, and I think networking is incredibly important. What I really did is, if you look at how I built my business, I built it in 3 ways. I got clients by 3 ways: either people who know me, people who referral from a current client, and then people who saw me speak. And so I really went on the speaking circuit in my first year last year. And each few months I would speak at an engagement, and I would speak on new topics. I spoke on millennials. I spoke on energetic presence. I spoke on communications, which was my former life. And just got myself out there. And then when people saw speaking, and one of my core values is fun. And so I like to make all of my workshops incredibly fun. And so that is how I work on getting clients, because that's my strength, right? being authentic and showing up and just being present, having fun. That's where I was able to use my energy to reach clients. Networking is great for a lot of people. It just isn't what I'm best at. And so I really am best at one-on-one speaking, those sorts of things. So that's how I was able to do that. Did I answer the question?
You totally did. You totally did. And I love that because every coach is going to do it differently. And for you, it was, referrals. It was people you knew through business. And I love the speaking engagements. It's a great, great way to get out there. And they get a preview of your fun and your energy and what it's like to work with you. So that's a really great way.
Well, and I'll tell you one piece of advice, and it's from a book I read and enjoyed, The Prosperous Coach by Rich Lidman. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me, and it really allowed me to push the pause on something, because when you're starting, you're so desperate for that first client. You're so excited, and you're so anxious and nervous. And then you want it to work out so quickly. And one of the things he said in his book was, don't be needy. No one likes needy, or something to that effect. And it really paused, because that's what I felt like in going to these networking. I was needy, like, hi, let me tell you what I'm doing. And it was just so uncomfortable for me. And so realizing and trusting the process and realizing that it will come in ways you're not expecting. And when things don't work out or someone doesn't call you back, guess what? They're not ready. And guess what? If they aren't ready, you're not going to be able to serve them well. So really understanding that and being curious, I wonder why this is happening right now. Must not be meant to be right now. But it doesn't mean later on, stay positive, because look at the client that I signed and literally started with a year later. If I had gotten needy and started desperately reaching out to her or doing anything weird, she would have been like, forget it. Guess what? She wasn't ready. And guess what? She is now. So trusting that is really important. And don't be needy. It's easy.
I love don't be needy. Take my business card, please.
Don't throw it away. At least don't throw it away in front of you.
Oh, that's great. We have a question about, you've talked about the energy leadership and how you really do love using that tool, the ELI, the assessment tool. And Susan is asking, how do you purchase it as the coach? Do you pass that on to your clients? How do you go about doing that?
Oh, yes, of course you pass it on to clients. Yes, you can charge a fee on top of it. You don't have to. So when I started early, again, what I did is I bought a whole bunch. I bulk bought like 10 or 20 because I was doing a conference and I was going to debrief a lot of people. So I bulk bought, and then I just charged exactly what I was charged by Ipek for those assessments. And then I did their debrief for free. But now with clients, I roll that into a package that I offer. But I don't put a whole bunch on top of the assessment, but you can, absolutely, whatever you need to do. And the clients expect that. So absolutely allow them to pay for that with their services.
That's great.
That's part of their investment. Don't talk about fees, talk about investment, right? They're investing in themselves.
Right. It's all about the wording, right? And planting that seed that this really is an investment, right?
Absolutely. You bet.
Karen asked, can you talk about that first client? How did you start the conversation, and were you nervous?
Oh my gosh, of course you were. You gotta play it cool, right? But really remember, a lot of this, and these are the things you'll learn early on with iPEC, is listening and acknowledging. People want to be heard. And a lot of this is really understanding, what is it this person's needing and what can I provide to them so that they can help themselves? And so really taking that pressure off having the right words, because it's really not about having the right words. It's really about listening. It's really about understanding the tools that will help them the most. And it's really about connection with them and building that trust. So it's really simple relationship things that allow you to be successful, trusting your intuition, those sorts of things. So having I remember always struggling finding the right words. And that's important to learn how to ask the right questions. But to me, it's not the most important. Showing up, being present, listening, those sorts of things are very basic skills that will allow you to be incredibly successful.
I love that. And you can tell out in our viewer land, Deb is so authentic and genuine, and that comes across. It's about the relationships, and that's just going to naturally shine through, right? So it's not so much about the right wording. It's about being yourself and the connection and the relationships, as you've said. I love that.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. And remember, the more you're focusing on the right wording, the less you're listening, right? Yes. And it's easy. And as a new coach, I promise you, we all get caught up in thinking of the right wording. But then remember, focusing back on what they're needing is the most important thing.
Well, we have about a minute left here. You have been extremely wonderful, as we knew you would be. And thank you for all the insights you've shared. If somebody did want to get in touch with you or reach out, how's the best way they can find you?
Sure. So my email is Deborah Degner, DeborahDegner @yourleadershipbridge.com. And yes, it's the longest email in the world. So just be patient when you're typing it. My website is yourleadershipbridge.com is my website.
Beautiful.
So feel free to go on there. You can email me through that. You can email me directly. Really exciting. It has completely changed my life in so many beautiful ways. I am forever grateful for everything I've learned from Ipek and as a coach. And I'm just excited you guys are considering the journey. It's a great one. You won't have any regrets.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you that have additional questions about the program itself, please feel free to go to our website, www.ipeccoaching.com. You can download the 9 keys. That gives you a lot of information, a lot of frequently asked questions. And you can also go to the link that Suzanne's going to share with you right now. If you want to set up a coaching session with one of our admissions coaches like myself, we can answer a lot of the logistical questions, but the insights you shared about the real life stuff being out there have been just phenomenal. You were a delight. Thank you so much for all of your generous time.
And my pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate your thoughtful questions, and we hope you join us next month with our next graduate interview. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.